Hey, I'm Blake. I'm one of the co-creators of 1961, and I'm here to answer some of the questions you might have about the game. So when the game starts, you're going to give one Moonlander to everyone, and it'll briefly explain on the bottom what you're supposed to do, but I'll show you right now. You're going to deal 3 cards to every player from the deck. You can look at these cards, this is your hand, and you're going to choose one of them to put face down on the Moonlander, just like this. I'll go into what exactly that means in a second. Every turn starts the exact same way. You will draw one card, and then you will end up playing one card in your turn. You can play it as a building, an action, or face down onto one of your buildings, but you will always play only one card. Additionally, a couple of the buildings will have building abilities. You can use as many of those as your buildings allow you to, and you can use them before or after you play your card. So your turn won't end until you decide to pass it to the next player. Every card you draw has a building side that's in white. Okay, you're going to play the building in front of you or any other player. You have a row of buildings in front of you. You can slide the new building in between any of the buildings, or on the left or on the right. You just can't change the order once they're already down. Every card you draw will also have an action side in red. Now, a couple of the actions are a little different, but for the most part, you will play the action into the discard pile and do whatever it says. So, for instance, this missile launch, I will play it, it will launch a missile. The final thing you can do with every single card in your hand is play it face down onto another building. Playing it face down on that building will look something like this. You don't want to cover the building text so you can see it. And if you play another card, you just keep stacking them down like this. The number one reason that you'll be stacking a card on a building is to give it protection from missiles. However, some buildings also have abilities that they can use if you have cards stacked on them. So be sure to read each building. The first thing you do, anytime you launch a missile, is choose any player, including yourself. That's the player you're going to launch the missile at. Now, when the missile is launched at them, you will reveal the top card of every single one of their stacks and put them all into the discard pile. If a building has no cards on its stack, that building is just destroyed, put straight into the discard pile, same as if it was a revealed card. If one of the cards that you reveal is a response system, that's when things get tricky. Response system acts the same way as another regular missile, like missile launch. The difference is you cannot play response system from your hand. The only time it launches a missile is when it is revealed, either by a sabotage or another missile. So it could very well be that you launch a missile at somebody, they reveal a bunch of response systems, those missiles will come back at you, and you might be completely wiped out. 2 of the buildings have only victory conditions. Moonlander is the one that everyone starts with. If you stack 5 cards on it, you win. Simple as that. Embassy, very similar. If you get 3 embassies in front of you, you win. If any of them are embargoed, then you have to build more of them, but by and large, you get 3, you win. 2 of the buildings, missile silo and bunker, have to do directly with launching missiles. So, bunker reads that adjacent non-bunkers will not take damage from missiles, so it protects whichever 2 buildings are next to it. So, instead of whenever a missile launches and it hits everything on your board, it will not hit the 2 things next to it until the bunker is destroyed. So if there's nothing stacked on the bunker, it would just get destroyed. If there's something stacked on the bunker, though, like this, only the bunker gets hit. These buildings are protected. Missile silo, super simple. Any cards that you stack on it, at any time on your turn, you can launch them like missiles. So you just pretend this is a missile, you throw it in the discard pile, you launch it. And like I said, you can stack it on your turn, but then any time on your turn, you can take one of these and use it. So the very turn that maybe this is already built and then you put this on it right there, immediately you can launch this. And if there were 10 of them stacked, you can launch them all on the same turn. Agency is your upgrade building. So what it reads is for each card stacked on this, X is increased by 1. Well, what is X? Both Sabotage and Espionage have these little numbers on them with the asterisk next to it. These will be upgraded for each card that is placed face down onto your agency. If you have multiple agencies, then all of them would be added together to upgrade this. So instead of Espionage looking at 2 stacked cards and discarding 1, if your agency was upgraded, you'd be looking at 3 stacked cards, discarding 2, etc. And then finally, we have the factory, which will act as your production in 1961. So whenever it's stacked, it's going to produce you a card each turn. This will happen the instant that it becomes stacked. You can produce that turn. Now, what does producing means? It means that you're drawing a card from the top of the deck without looking at it, and you're putting it on any non-factory stack. So you could put it on a building that has no cards, you could put it on a building that has a lot of cards. It's really up to you. It can be your opponent's buildings, your buildings, doesn't matter. The simplest action is missile launch. All you do to play missile launch is you play it to the discard pile, and it launches a missile at anyone you want, including yourself. Response system, like we discussed before, is very similar to missile launch, but with one important difference, and it's that you cannot play it from your hand. It only gets played when it is revealed. So if you want to use it, you should play it face down on yourself and try to goad people into missiling you so that it gets revealed. And then, of course, what it does is it just launches a missile right back at whoever made it explode. Sabotage and Espionage are the 2 cards that get upgraded by agency. You can use them to mess around, interact with other people's stacked cards or your own stacked cards. We'll start with Sabotage. Sabotage, you will target any stack. So a stack, of course, is just any building with some cards stacked on it, and it will target the top card of that stack. Both Espionage and Sabotage can only target the top card of that stack. Sabotage lets you reveal that stacked card and then play it immediately. So if it happened to be an Espionage, I would get to use it right then and there. The only thing that you don't get to use is response system. If you sabotage a response system, you explode. Okay? Espionage lets you look at 2 stacked cards, and then you choose which of them gets discarded. Unlike Sabotage, if you reveal a response system, it doesn't blow up. You get to safely discard it. So what happens if your agency is stacked? So for each card that gets stacked on your agency, these numbers on these cards will be increased by 1. So instead of Espionage looking at 2 and discarding 1, you would look at 3 and discard 2, etc. Finally, we have the Embargo. Whenever you play an Embargo, you can disable any one building by replacing the Embargo with the top card of that stack. So if, for instance, we had this agency here with 2 cards stacked on it, and I decided to embargo it, then I would take this card and put this one here. The card that gets replaced is just discarded, no matter what it is. Doesn't matter if it's a response system, anything. Just gets replaced, discarded. This building can no longer use any of its abilities. It's as if it has no text at all. So if it's an agency, then none of the cards are being upgraded. If it's a missile silo, you can't launch missiles from it until the embargo is removed, destroyed, or moved somewhere else using some other card. There are 3 ways to win the game. The easiest way is by using your Moonlander. You just stack 5 cards on it. The very instant it has 5 cards, then you win. Doesn't matter if somebody else stacks the 5th card on it during their turn, or you stack it on your own turn. Whenever it has 5 cards, that player who has the Moonlander, they win the game. Embassy, very simple. You declare world peace if you have 3 embassies in front of you. Now, neither one of these buildings, if they are embargoed, will work. So if you embargo an embassy, then you'll need 3 different embassies. If the Moonlander is embargoed, then you'll have to destroy the embargo before you can win this way. And then the final way to win is simply to be the last person with buildings left. If ever you are out entirely of buildings, your last one gets destroyed, you are removed from the game, and you no longer get to take turns. One final thing to note, whenever the deck runs out of cards, you just shuffle the discard pile back in and make a new deck out of them. Make sure, though, that anyone who has discarded their Moonlander, because maybe they've been eliminated, maybe not, don't shuffle these back into the deck. This is the card everyone starts with. It is not a card in the deck. It doesn't have an action side. It's just the starting card. Hopefully this has clarified any questions you have about 1961, and I hope you guys have a blast with the game.